everybody. Welcome back to Adaptation, a podcast where we talk about books, comics, any written media to visual media. My name is Kelsey, and that is...
It's me, Eric.
And today we're going to be talking about a story that comes in two different names between the two different versions, which I find interesting. And what is that story we're talking about today, Sweeter?
This is Edward Ashton's Mickey 7, which became Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17.
Very distinct difference, and there is a very good reason why he did that, I think, and we'll get right into it.
Yes, there is.
All right, so logline. What's your logline for this one?
Down on his luck, space colonist sacrifices agency for a new start.
It's a good logline.
Yeah.
My boyfriend described this as Tom Hanks' Oblivion, but with Robert Pattinson.
That's interesting.
Not exactly the same whatsoever, but the similar concept of a man who escapes whatever he's going through and turns into basically a clone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my logline, is clones in space and how he's dealing with his humanity.
Love it.
So let's get into a little bit about, I would say, the main characters. First off, Mickey and or Mickeys.
Yeah.
And how they differ between the two versions.
Mr. Mickey Barnes.
Mr. Mickey Barnes.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we actually have another scientific thing going on with this episode, is I did not read this book. I only listened to it, and Swader read it.
We're alternates. We are alternate hosts.
We're alternate hosts, which is, I think, interesting because I heard a performance and then I saw the performance, and then he's coming straight from a imagination standpoint. So I'll be asking questions based on that as well.
Absolutely.
So to start with Mickey 7, the book, we start in with, obviously, we talked about clones as the logline. He is an expendable on this colonization mission in space. So Earth is pretty much dying, and in the book there's a lot more other colonies that have been established over a much larger stretch of time. And so for him, an expendable is somebody who can get a job done that it would cost too much money for a robot to get destroyed doing.
Yeah.
And they'll just reprint his DNA into the same exact body. So he dies a bunch.
Yeah.
In the book, he only dies, quote, 7 times, because that's what the number outside of his name is the iteration of him that has been regenerated. So in the book, there's only 7. In the movie, there are 17.
Yeah.
Meaning that he has died 10 more times in the movie than in the book. Why do you think that they did that?
I thought of that. I think it's simple answer. The director, Bong Joon-ho, is just a wacky guy. I think he's got an incredibly wacky sensibility that he likes to bring even to his more serious movies. Like, I was thinking about Parasite, which won Best Picture a couple of years ago. And even that, which was a decidedly more serious drama, still had a lot of really fun, sort of eccentric humor to sort of undercut that really intense human drama.
Dark humor.
Yeah, very dark humor.
Oh, he's very eccentric and a very dark humor person.
Yeah.
And I honestly had a blast. I have a very dark sense of humor, and the movie adaptation of this, I had a blast, and we'll get into that at the very end. But, so there's 2 different numbers on the ends of these titles, and that starts with the main character of Mickey Barnes. And so in the book, he dies significantly less, but I do believe that they spend, it's over a smaller portion of time for him in the book in terms of global lifespan, or is it the same?
I think, well, in terms of the instantiations, which is what they call it in the book, I'm surprised because they cover more of the journey here. They focus a lot more on the initial journey getting to Niflheim, which is the beachhead colony that they're establishing. And so it's strange because I think because of the number of instantiations they cover, the sort of prologue on the journey covers more ground and more time. But once you actually get to the planet, it's a tighter duration, I think. It's the book takes place, I think, over a few days of his life, trying to deal with the sudden unauthorized extra copy of this additional Mickey 8. Yeah.
That's a huge crux of both, is that there is a multiple of them. There's 2 of them at one point, because when Mickey 7 or Mickey 17 was supposed to have died in a fall in the tundra of this planet, he didn't actually die.
Right.
And then the native species in both iterations save him, which that the native species is a character all unto themselves. So he, in both versions, gets saved returns back to the ship, and lo and behold, his next iteration had already been printed because his, quote, friend reported him already dead. So now they have to deal with, there's 2 of them, and it's illegal to be a multiple for a bunch of different reasons. They go into more detail with that in the book.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's just like, it's an abomination. There can't be 2 of you ethically, morally, and just...
There's a strange religious component to it that is in the book as well, and it's really pronounced in the movie.
Yeah, and they don't really go a bunch into the religion in the movie. It's just in terms of like how it works.
Yeah.
They don't go through the mechanics of religion. They just use religion as a mechanic for the story.
Correct, yeah.
So for there to be multiples in the book, they gave a really good story. And they kind of touched on it with a mass murderer had made multiples of himself as one of the engineers who created the technology. And he goes on to murder a bunch of people, and like that's why there can't be multiples, because it's crazy, you know? Versus the book, it is an entire planetary takeover of multiples.
It's maybe my favorite story in the book, because one of my favorite bits in the book is how Mickey loves to read about all of the colonies that have happened over the millennia or so of colonization post-Earth. And he comes down to the case of Galt, this multiple Alan Manikova, who discovers how to replicate the synapses, not just the physical form, but the synapses in the human brain. And is also, unfortunately, a sociopath, like most rich people.
He's a rich sociopath in the book, which they touch on rich sociopaths in the movie, so I think that's probably where they got the theme from. But he ends up colonizing a planet. Galt,
which is a great note because he refers to it as an objectivist-driven planet, philosophically, and Galt is great because it's a reference to Ayn Rand's, I don't know, it's one of her terrible books, but John Galt is one of her sort of objectivist hero icons. Atlas Shrugged, that's the one. And I like that they never make reference to Ayn Rand, but they make it very clear that it's like very clear stand-in for like psychotic, objectivist, irresponsible wealth. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. And the big crux of how multiples are made is with protein, with basically waste and food, and you need material to recreate a clone, basically. You can't just pull a clone out of nothing. It's like the principle of energy is transferred, not created.
Yeah.
So in the Galt example, he gets there and he's making multiples of himself, and he's running out of fuel to make more of these people to take over the planet. So he starts killing the inhabitants and recycling their body material to make clones of himself. And, and it turns out he just turns into a giant planet of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating sort of moral keystone in the story, because it really cuts to the heart of how complex colonization becomes when you can't always control the circumstances of who's doing it. And I think they touch on the idea of the union of planets in the book, because this has taken place over, like I said, almost I think a millennia post-Earth, once it had been destroyed in the Bubble Wars, which is such a funny name for such a horrifying idea. Whereas in the movie, Bong Joon-ho, it actually made me think of Parasite for a few reasons, which is that even the setting in the house seems like the sort of modern architectural thing that the wealthier family in Parasite would have been living in. Spoiler alert, minor spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Parasite, that this poorer family ends up residing in while they're absent. But it seems like the kind of place that would have existed in that book, and he uses that as a signature of wealth in a different way than they signify this crazy wealthy psychopath in the book. It's very much his style, and I think it cuts to the heart of like Bong Joon-ho's approach to this material and what he took from it, the wild direction that he took it.
The wild direction that goes through a bunch of other key players in the story and like makes them different from the book than the movie.
Yeah.
The most notable for me was Marshall, the head of the head of the colony.
Yeah.
He's so different between the two. And I can't really tell which one I actually liked better, because like I mentioned, I listened to the audiobook. So the voice actor who presented Marshall in the audiobook was completely different to Mark Ruffalo's interpretation in the movie. And they're both good. So I'm not pulling a performance right just from my head. I'm comparing directly audio performance to visual performance.
Yeah.
Now, in the book, he came off more as a ex-military man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ex-military man leader.
Yeah. Or who at least aspired to that.
Yeah, who wasn't really necessarily a failure in his previous careers. He was just given this colony because he was a, quote, military leader, if I'm wrong.
Commander Marshall, yeah. Which is something they do belabor that a lot more in the book, that he's like, in the book, he is very much a functionary sort of leader of this expedition. Mm-hmm. But in the movie, he is, I mean, it's impossible to avoid. He's quite clearly a Trump allegory.
He is.
Yeah.
And they do that with multiple examples with all of his followers wearing red hats.
Yeah.
And his speech patterns that Mark Ruffalo presented him with. And the veneers and like... It was a blast to watch, but also really depressing.
Well, yeah. So we saw this. This was our first podcast field trip. We went and saw Mickey 17 in theaters. And my lovely wife, Julie, huge Mark Ruffalo fan. And it was like the most repulsive she's ever seen him. And like clearly quite intentionally.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Ruffalo was having a ball with this.
Well, after Pretty Things, I think we mentioned this after we stepped out of the movie, he's just going off on his own fucking weird things.
Oh, yeah. Poor Things. Yeah.
Poor Things,
which was, he is, once you cut yourself off from that Marvel money and you just start doing whatever you want, the world's your oyster.
He's living his best life, and it was a treat to see him in this. But it did just accentuate the fact that they are so different. They made him basically a bumbling idiot puppet.
Yeah.
I.e. Trump in space.
Yeah.
And his wife, who isn't in the book.
A new addition.
So this is one of the rare cases where they've added a character that is not in the book. Usually they cut the characters that are in the book. But you never really see substitutions.
Yeah.
But I think hers was very intentional.
Yeah.
In that he would be stumbling along, and then she'd like whisper into his ear on how he should do something. As like, maybe you should do this, suggestion, love, and then he would do it, and it'd be successful. So really, she was the power player in decisions.
Yeah, he's spineless. He is a spineless poser. And
the quarters in which they resided were very much like wealth disparity. You opened up and it was like full on wealth in a spaceship.
Their gaudy dining room. They're
gaudy as heck. And again, we forgot to warn you that this is spoilers alert. We're not going to go into exact details of the whole thing here. But guys, if you want to see or read this, maybe you should listen to this episode first. But a prime example of them really not caring about people underneath them is when Mickey's suffering from food poisoning at a dinner they invited him to because they're testing something out on him because he's an expendable.
Yeah, and fake beef.
A fake beef that his rations had gotten cut, so he's starving. So he's eating this fake meat that ends up making him violently ill in an excruciating pain. And then the medical team comes in and was like, "Oh, okay, so we have this new pain drug we're testing out. Can we test it out on him right now? It's a perfect opportunity." And they're like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. What the fuck? We don't care about him." And they shoot him up with pain medicine, and he gets worse. And he's like, I guess the medicine didn't work. And he's dying. He's in so much pain on the carpet, and they're like, "We should just shoot this iteration and reprint him out because he's suffering, right?" And they go to try and shoot him, and the wife's like, no, not my Persian rug that he's laying on. And she moves the Persian rug and says, "Okay, now you can shoot him."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a complete disregard. Well, and so this is another really sort of fascinating divergence from the book, which is that there is a real awareness of the lack of resources they have to print more Mickeys. Mm-hmm. Like in the book, Marshall is loath to make another Mickey, and if he had his way, would just stop making him altogether. Yeah. Despises Mickey, the concept of Mickey.
Yeah.
Even existing.
From a religious standpoint.
It's just insulting to him. And whereas in the movie, he is quite clearly a lab rat. And I think it's because Bong Joon-ho made a really conscious decision to make everybody slightly dumber in the movie. And I think, like, except for a few characters, like Nasha, for example, his partner, is not that she's at all incompetent or unintelligent in the book, but she has so much more agency and intent, and she is so capable in the movie in a way that she just isn't in the book. She's a much stronger presence.
Yes.
And Mickey is, what I love about what they did with Mickey is that in the book he's a reasonably intelligent guy. He's just somebody without any valuable skills on a colony planet full of like scientists and technicians and people who are there. He is a history major.
Yeah.
He studied history like me. Okay, side note. This was a big deal for me because I found myself slowly relating to this guy more and more. As soon as the first thing I heard was that he was a history major, and I was like, huh, it's interesting. And then, so not to go into too much detail over it, but I spent a few months going through cancer treatment. The second half of last year, the extent to which I felt like a lab rat was unbelievable. You get a new drug a couple of times a week with some kind of different reaction.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody involved in that process is just matter-of-factly telling you, well, this is going to happen, and this is probably going to happen, and if it happens, do this, and then go to bed.
We never record it, because we need to know what happens.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We got to know.
Yeah.
And like, the more here's this very vulnerable guy who is just kind of doing make-work stuff and barely getting by, and I was like, huh, interesting. A bit of a mirror. But he is, in the movie, he is a total cartoon. He is Roger Rabbit.
Oh, I love him. I love Mickey 17.
Yeah.
I love him mainly because I made this point after we saw the in the lobby with everybody that Robert Pattinson, he plays Mickey in the movie.
Yeah.
And his accent is it's ridiculous. He thought, oh, Mickey. What's the name? Mickey Barnes.
Yeah.
Where would that name originate? New York. I'll just do an exaggerated New York accent. And then it just reminded me, if anybody, this is a deep cut, the first Twilight movie, In the Garage, where he's sending Bella off to run away from the dude, and he's like, I'll come back for you. And it sounds exactly like that horrible New York accent that slips through for the first time in the whole movie. That's what Mickey Barnes' accent is.
Yeah.
The entirety of this film.
Yeah.
And I love it.
It is so funny. And again, it's that Bong Joon-ho, he will look for any excuse to go for a visual bit. He loves these exaggerated archetypes. He just wanted to play with those ideas. And if an idea in the book didn't jive with that, he jettisoned it immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Does not care. And I love it. It's great.
He got the bones. I mean, as always, most of the bones stay put.
The basic structure of the story is there. But, it takes place in 2054 in the movie, far earlier in history than the book.
They're coming straight from Earth. They're not coming from another planetary thing that's not Earth.
Yeah, in the book, they haven't heard from Earth in centuries.
They're from Midgard.
From Midgard.
Yeah.
And then Niflheim. It's fun that there's this sort of undercurrent. There's a fun thing with the naming conventions of the colonies where they seem to reflect the intention of whoever is leading the expedition, and not some very specific sort of naming convention. It's not like Rigel 7. Mm-hmm. It's just whoever is leading it, it's Galt, or it's Niflheim, or it's this or that. And they basically had destroyed Earth centuries earlier in the Bubble War because they discovered antimatter. And as he says in the book, if you can't use it to basically get off, then the second thing you try to do is use it to make a weapon. And they immediately use it to make a weapon.
Exactly, because humans.
Yeah.
So they destroy themselves. That's a through line for both. Humanity was just destroying itself,
yeah.
And then their first instinct is to just fight.
Yeah.
That goes with the native species in both iterations of oh, well, they're doing this, so they must hate us, so we must kill them. And you're well, maybe not. Maybe you should just hold back for a second.
The very cavalier. It is a movie about colonization, and it is a movie about lessons not learned at all.
Oh, absolutely. I think the movie had way more political, in-your-faceness, and they added to it with a couple of different things, along with the colonization. So there's 3 big political issues in the movie, and then the colonization was the main one in.
It's much more subtle, but some pretty severe, very extreme points made of the dangers, not just of colonization, but of the degree to which you dehumanize colonists in pursuit of these missions. Mickey is expendable, but what you find in this act of colonization is that everybody's expendable. That's just everybody's fodder. And if you accept that most of the missions might fail, then that's just the nature of the business.
And that's what they reference on both of we don't want this to fail. And more and so in the book that there's so many more expeditions in the book.
Yeah.
Versus in the movie, it was they didn't touch on any of the other expeditions. It was just oh, the last one left. This is the only one that I can get on to, which is why he had urgency to get onto the Niflheim one.
Yeah.
But they mentioned there were other ones, but they don't go into any detail about it because they don't need to.
It's not his focus.
Yeah.
He wanted to do and also if you adapt the book, it's almost Dune-like in scale. I mean, it is one of his pastimes is just reading about all the failed colonization efforts. It's strangely how he relaxes. It reminded me of listening to true crime podcasts.
Oh yeah.
Where it's it's a very morbid fascination with fatality.
I love me some true crime. This
Sure.
is not a true crime podcast, but My Favorite Murder, I Love You, if you're ever going to listen to this podcast, where my partner's you don't watch horror movies, but you listen to all this true crime podcasts. We're and then her foot got cut off. And
yeah.
then her nose got cut off. But you can't watch a horror movie where those things happen on screen. And I will say this, it's because I don't have to see them get harmed. I learn about them getting harmed.
Right.
And I learn from it. Not that I'm going to get murdered by a serial killer. That's my piece. But
that's a very interesting observation. I think it's right.
Yeah. So back to the story. We'll be starting off with Mickey's, and an important part of Mickey in both is that there's two of them, which there is a multiple of them. So the one we're going to go into, I think, next would be his second iteration that kind of overlapped when he was supposed to die.
Yeah.
And that is Mickey 8/18.
Mickey 18, yeah.
18. The difference between these two Mickeys was, I think, significant in the book, from the book to the movie.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to go into like what your biggest difference.
So as I was reading the book, I was reminded of an earlier episode, Fight Club, where it's very much about sort of internalized duality as a concept, as a theme. The first person narrative, the stream of consciousness of it all. It really reminded me of this guy who is sort of dueling with another part of himself in a way. Because in the book, they're pretty much the same, but Ashton plays with the idea of how circumstance affects their outcome. Because whether or not psychologically they're the same person, they are both faced with survival. Like you have the identical organisms faced with survival, and all of a sudden some slight variations pop out. But their personalities are largely the same, and that's where the conflict comes from. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the movie, he really dials up that Fight Club comparison, because Mickey 18 is a nut job. I mean, he is a total sociopath.
He's a psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it.
He is a complete, like, if Mickey 7 or 17 in this case is like Roger Rabbit, then like Mickey 18 is, I'm trying to think of a cartoon that's a Chad. But he's essentially like, but he's...
Oh, it's not a cartoon, but I'm jumping to...
That's fine.
American Psycho.
Yeah, I've heard he's Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, we're just gonna get shit done. If you're not gonna get shit done, I'm gonna kill you. Like, it's not like, it's so matter of fact that he has no respect for human life.
He's all id.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he fully recognizes he is a clone.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, they don't care about me, I don't care about them. Like, fuck them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like if they would have gone with a direct adaptation of the book, character-wise, it would have been boring. Like, watching 7 and 8.
I agree.
It would have been boring.
It does work better that way on screen. Yeah. Because I think it worked well in the book, but it works well in the book because it's nuanced and because, frankly, in the movie, it's just fun to watch Robert Pattinson do completely different interpretations of the same guy. He's nuts. I mean, he is physical and
a drug addict.
That's the great thing about it is that they introduce the drug element in the movie that doesn't exist in the book, which actually makes a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense that colonists who are almost starving to death in famine conditions on this ice planet
and are bored as shit.
Yeah. Are 100% finding a drug. Oh. They're figuring it out immediately.
It was weird. It wasn't in the book.
Yeah. 100%.
And they find it, and it's because in the movie Nasha also does. So something that's in both the books is that 7 or 17 is like protective of Nasha, which is their longtime girlfriend. So across all iterations, Nasha is stuck by him. Like, that's the love of his life, whatever version it is of him out there.
Yeah.
And so when 8 or 18 is like with Nasha in both versions, 7 or 17 is so jealous. He's like, I can't believe he's touching her. I'm like, dude, it's you, but not really.
Yeah.
And so that's the question of like, is Nasha cheating on him if it's with him?
Yeah.
And so when he discovers that, he goes back to his bunk and they're both there, and obviously they've been doing some intimate stuff.
Yeah.
In the movie, they're doing drugs at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a comical scene because, I mean, like, you have no sense of what Nasha would have done in the absence of Mickey 18. Mm-hmm. But Mickey 18 is clearly the driving force behind this, and they immediately fall into a Sid and Nancy dynamic, and it is just hysterically funny to watch.
In the book, it goes further. Like, they actually do stuff, I think.
They have... It is stated that they essentially have a threesome.
With each other.
But then Mickey 7, as he's narrating, just passages and chapters are cut off by a horizontal line. Mm-hmm. And then there's one small passage describing it that just says, I'm not going to describe what you did, but we did stuff and we had fun or whatever. Like, it's not... Whatever. It's not...
That was cut off in the movie before it happened.
Yeah.
Really, it was like... They were all just laying in bed, and Nasha was like, they don't actually do anything like that in the movie.
She tries to initiate it.
And then they get caught.
Yeah. By, interestingly enough, Kai Katz, which is another evolution of a character from the book, Kat Chen.
Yeah.
Who they tease kind of a chemistry and dynamic between Kat and Mickey in the book. Mm-hmm. And here it's quite clear that like Kai is very much into Mickey.
Yeah. I don't know if it's out of boredom or that she actually likes him, because in the book they developed more of a kindred spirit relationship.
Yeah.
Then in the movie, it was like...
She's lonely. She's lonely and she wants contact. In a passage in the story, one of her friends in security, she's a security officer, mm-hmm. and one of her friends...
Her
roommate, who also worked in security...
something else is alluded to.
Right.
Yeah.
Was killed on a planetary expedition by one of the creepers, one of the aliens that they're trying to destroy. Mm-hmm. And it's really sort of at least implied that she's lonely and she's seeking human comfort. And neither one of them seems to mind that they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, it's pretty clear that they do. But also, there's an interesting concept in the book that they don't really mention, which is that there are natalists, is what they're called. People who think that you shouldn't make clones or instantiations. Mm-hmm. There's a subset of that, which are fetishists, who are fascinated sexually with Mickey.
Yeah. For Expendables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's like he doesn't have a soul. So it's like the dynamic of there's one soul, one body.
Yeah.
And because he's been replicated, his soul was lost with his first iteration, and now he's just a human, empty soul suit.
He's just a vessel,
He's just a vessel, and so they want to, get with him. And it's more of a point in the book of, like, people wanted to get with me, but I backed off.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's like, oh, if there's a beautiful person that was interested in me, Nasha, like...
she'll kill them.
She'll kill them. Like, yeah. I love that dynamic. She's so protective of him.
Yeah.
And at least they kept that up. I was a little worried that they would take that like, protectiveness and let it fall.
Yeah.
Near the end, but they didn't. They stuck with each other the whole time.
Well, and she's a pilot in the book, and in the movie, Bong Joon-ho makes her into this kind of vague secret agent, super agent, essentially.
And she's in security.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's like the Marshall Games. She was like a victor. What the fuck are the Marshall Games?
Yeah, which is another fun thing that you're like, yeah, that makes sense. They get into something stupid.
Yeah.
But speaking of pilots, we come to his best friend in the book, Berto, who is also a pilot in both iterations of the story. Mm-hmm. But this is another huge point of divergence where it also ties into Mickey's rationale for leaving Midgard. Mm-hmm. Because in the book, Berto is this sort of eminently charming, incredibly popular, naturally talented athlete. Mm-hmm. And he retires from the sport that he plays on this planet, this invented sport. And then he comes
of tennis.
Yeah, basically. He's sort of a Roger Federer type. Mm-hmm. And then he decides he wants to re-enter the sport later in life as he's older. And Mickey is convinced that he's too old to win against the younger competitors. And so he bets enormously against him to lose. And of course, he's wrong. And Berto wins in like a lock.
A landslide.
Yeah.
And he gets in with a bad sort of...
Darius Blank.
Yeah. The Betmaster, this shark.
Yeah.
That comes after him, and he... In the book, he gets attacked by his goons, and the payment is torture.
Yeah.
Right? And so the prospect of just being tortured for the rest of his life is something he doesn't want to go through.
Right.
So he finds his way to become an expendable, and no one else applied, so he gets the job, because no one else wants to do this job of just dying constantly.
Right.
Because, they have other ways out, and he doesn't. In the movie, they definitely take the friendship down a notch.
Yeah, Timo. They rename him even in the movie.
Yeah.
And they're both, again, it's a big Bong Joon-hoism. They're both just kind of scraping by. Like he tries to convince him that macarons are going to be more popular than hamburgers. And so they decide to open a macaron shop.
So
and they get the funding from this guy, Darius Blank. And of course it goes bust. They are both kind of wallowing in the same scum on Earth, but I think what Bong Joon-ho borrows from the book is that he's very charming.
He is very charming, and they make a note of that where Mickey goes to apply for the expedition, and he's like, "Yeah, Timo got on as a sprinter pilot. He just got his learner's permit like 2 weeks ago. When did he do that?"
Yeah,
and so all that's left for him is the expendable job.
Yeah.
They did a good job in the movie of kind of like sprinkling in what really went wrong.
Yeah.
And they don't actually make them close friends on the ship. At least in the book, they were like trying to hold a semblance of friendship.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's like, no, Timo's a horrible person.
He sucks. He's just dealing drugs to everybody on the ship.
He's the drug dealer that gets everybody in trouble.
Yeah.
We find out that he actually put all of the loans under Mickey's name.
Yeah.
So it fell on him almost exclusively.
Yeah.
But he was lumped in terms of like repayment.
Yeah.
Because he knew who he was. In the movie, it's more of, we're not going to torture you, we're going to kill you.
The electric digital double chainsaw.
Double chainsaw. So I think the stakes of them leaving were a lot higher because it's like, oh yeah, you can maybe endure torture, maybe, but you can't endure death.
Because Darius Blank has a fascination with death, which is an interesting little tidbit that he adds in there. Bong Joon-ho really likes to look at figures in authority who have a sadistic streak. Mm-hmm. He's interested in the idea that with power and authority and wealth comes a certain kind of sadism.
Yeah. Well, because we see this with a bunch of the Epstein stuff happening as well, like, or the Diddy stuff. When you have so much wealth and power, there's only so much you can do, so you gotta resort to doing the crazy shit.
Yeah. And it attracts people, the kind of people who want to endlessly accumulate for its own sake. There's something there. There's just something about, like, and they touch on this in the book with Manakova, the planet of multiples on Galt, is this idea of, like, he's a wealthy aristocrat. He inherited his wealth from his parents. There was a huge suggestion that he killed them to get the money. He disappears for 5 years while he's figuring out how to copy synapses and just reappears and says, here it is, and then immediately fucks off.
Yeah.
And that's, I do think that is the idea and theme that Bong Joon-ho looked at and said, I want this to be a major element in the movie, because it is there and it's very much in his wheelhouse.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he does it in almost all of his other stuff.
Yeah.
What they do incorporate in the film that I think is really just a, like, visual plot point, I don't think it was 100% necessary, was when they go to, after being caught in the threesome, they go to jail. Yeah. They go to jail, and then Timo comes and was like, with his little drug lackey who he's roped in, is like, well, he found us. He said he would find us, and he found us millions of light years away.
There's an associate, one of Blank's associates on the ship.
And he's threatening us, and I have to send a video of you being chopped up to alleviate me.
In 32K. That's one of my favorite jokes in the movie.
32K. Are you getting it?
You're getting it 32K?
Yeah. With the same saw that we saw.
It's such a filmmaker joke.
It's not even perceptible to the human eye. That level of detail. Yeah. And so, but now there's two Mickeys, so they're trying to, like, determine who he's going to cut up, because there are two Mickeys, like, kill one of them, and the one, Mickey 18, actually tried to kill Tibu. Yeah. In the, like, compacting room, because he... In the cycler, where they dump the clones and all the ship's waste and stuff like that. And that's where the material is recycled for everyone's food, for the Mickeys, for everything. Yeah. And in the movie, the, like, 18's like, I remember what he did to us. I'm gonna fucking kill him. Yeah. So they get this huge fight, and Tibu gets pushed almost completely into the cycler, and he's saved by somebody walking into the room, and, like, and 18 pulls him out and everything. But now they're in the jail, and he's like, well, which one do I take? The nice, kind of stupid Roger Rabbit Mickey, or the psychopath Mickey? Yeah. And he picks the Roger Rabbit Mickey to kill, which and even Mickey 17 is like, why would you do that? He tried to kill you. Well, and then Mickey 18 volunteers. Yeah. He's like, he's such a nihilist that he's just like, whatever. Yeah. I'd rather give you the satisfaction of murdering me than just to prove that I'm the stronger part of the two of us. Yeah. I am the stronger. I am the better Mickey. Yeah, I'm the stronger Mickey. It actually leads to one of my favorite bits in the movie where Nasha breaks out of the cell that she's in with the Mickeys, and manages to get Timo in a headlock and is, like, prepared to kill him. Wait, no, I thought that was the saw. It was the saw, you're right. Yeah. But she's prepared to kill him. Yeah. And the Mickey 7, it's the good angel, bad angel bit where Mickey 17 is being like, oh, no, don't do it. And then Mickey 18 is just, yeah, you gotta do it. And is in the process of huffing drugs while she's telling her to do it. And it's such a cartoon. I just love it so much. It's just the one shot of, like, them on each side of her. It's so funny because Robert Pattinson's performance with 18 in that moment, cracking up. My boyfriend was like, this is ridiculous. It's so good. It's so good. So that's a great example of why the performance, I think, of making them so different was good.
If you get Robert Pattinson is like consistently one of the most fascinating performers alive. The projects that he's chosen post Twilight, once he's had the liberty to make those choices, he just consistently makes the wildest, most interesting choices that he can. And yeah, if you're gonna get him, don't do the book. Like, the book is great, I love the book, but don't. If you're gonna do a visual thing with these two guys, yeah, you gotta have fun with it.
You gotta have fun with it. And it was just fun. Yeah. So we got Timu, who eventually he almost gets murdered by the associate at the very end, but he comes out of it anyway because he's a survivor. He's a charmer. He won't die.
Yeah.
So that's really like their relationship was really a non-existent thing. In the book, more so, it was he still left him to die. Yeah. Both of them left him to die after he fell through the ice in the very beginning.
Yeah.
But it was more of an issue for Mickey that he lied to him about, one, how he died, or like why he didn't come save him, because they don't have the time records of uploading, because you have to upload in the movie. It was like every week.
So that the copies in the event of their death, so the future instantiations can have their memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the book, there was a little bit of a gapage.
Yeah, like a decent long time. Yeah,
it was like
several weeks.
6 weeks in the book that he didn't upload, and I think it was because he's starting to realize he died so many times. Like, he didn't want to. I don't think he wanted to come back.
Well, he is such a miserable guy, and in the book, he makes the choice with the movie to make his relationship with Nasha, I think, more emotionally resonant. Whereas in the book, it's not that they don't love each other and that she doesn't love him. It's that it is a sort of a minor function in their relationship, and Ashton's more interested in exploring the dynamic between, I think, him, obviously the other Mickey, and then his friend Berto, which is kind of different and sort of ties into his issues with trust and relationships that you get the impression has kind of dogged him his whole life.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And in the book, it was also fairly clear that he believed that they are not the same people, even though that iteration 8 and him, when 8 dies at the very end, it's like, it was hard having to be sad because technically we're the same person, but I truly don't believe I was the same person because we made different decisions.
Well, and this actually brings in another, I think probably the last major thematic difference between the book and the movie. In the book, the creepers, the sentient species that occupies Niflheim, which they're trying to colonize, are more of a hive mind. That they exist more as, like Mickey, instantiations of one organism.
Are you ancillaries or are you prime?
Right, which is a fun parallel between the two Mickeys, because you get a chance to explore the idea that, like, he even mentions it, where whenever their first exposure to the colonists was Mickey, and because there were multiples of Mickey, they were like, oh, well, then we can eat one of you, or we can kill one of you, because it doesn't matter. Like us, we're just communicating.
Yeah.
It does not matter. We're all in the same basic cloud of information.
Yeah.
So it's okay. And by the end, one of the creatures has taken one of the previous Mickey's oculars, which is their sort of communication device that they surgically implanted in their eyes, that everybody on the ship has. They just kind of communicate like instant messaging, essentially, and uses that to communicate with Mickey. And they start to talk about like this idea of, well, we don't want you to go past this point. At this point, they've also taken antimatter from the engine and built weapons. Marshall has decided they're going to wipe out the creepers once and for all with these antimatter bombs.
In the bubbles. Which was the Bubble Wars.
The Bubble Wars. So they want to do a little bubble war.
Yeah. On the creepers.
And sterilize the planet and get rid of them. And then Mickey pulls a fast one on the Marshall and says the creepers got one of the bombs. Each Mickey had a bomb. They say Mickey has one of the bombs, or Mickey 8, and they took his. And that's how he sort of strikes a peace between this hive mind creature and the human colonists by saying, well, I had to explain it to them because if they tried to disassemble it, they might have destroyed us all.
Yeah.
So they know what it is. They know how to use it. If we don't go past the foothills, if we stay in our zone, we're good.
We're fine.
We find out, of course, this was a ruse, that he goes ahead and hides the bomb when the creature brings it back. And he's just kind of using that to partially to save his own skin and become the diplomat between these two.
Key piece.
Yeah.
Because he's recognized as the prime. He's recognized as the communication emissary
Correct.
for the creepers in the book. So that is why Marshall didn't kill him, because if they killed him, then the whole place would go up in flames. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the movie, the creepers are... So this is where I think of another Bong Joon-ho movie, Okja, where I think that he has a real affinity and affection for the natural world and for creatures with, like, agency. He likes to think that these creatures are like... They, like us, have agency and exist in the world.
They have things that motivate them that are really resonant with human ideals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he really drums that up, and he changes their nature. And to the point where the mother creeper is distressed when the humans start taking their baby bugs and start torturing them so Marshall's wife can turn them into sauce. Because she keeps turning everything into sauce because she thinks that's the height of civilization.
Oh, I hate it. I was cringing. I actually, like, shed a tear for these creepers. I'm a huge animal person.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And they were, like, torturing them and cutting them, and they were crying, and they killed the one baby, and I was like, no!
Yeah.
But in the book, they're portrayed as I pictured them more as, like, praying mantises.
Yeah.
Like, big, chompy, scary things. And in the movie, they made them, like, giant roly-poly-olies.
Yeah.
They reminded me of Appa.
100%.
From Avatar. And I was like, you're killing Appa. And they're just so cute. And, so the hive mind was really, like, they are all interconnected, but it wasn't like, oh, you can kill one of us, and we don't care if you kill one of us, so you shouldn't care that we kill one of you.
Right.
You took our kid, and we want our kid back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, they took a member of their family.
Yeah.
And that becomes the climax of the film is we just want it back, and we want one of you to die.
Yeah.
That's the deal.
As reparation, because they had taken two babies, or they took a rock, cut it in half, and it was holding two babies in there. And the two babies came out in the conference room, and everyone's freaking out because of the aliens. And
live on a press conference,
and Marshall's like, kill them. And they kill the one baby viciously.
Yeah.
And obviously, because they're a hive mind, the mama bear knew that her baby had been killed. So her other reparation is like, I want my baby back, 1, and 2, I want one of you to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who dies? Well, 1, they convince Marshall in the movie to leave for his own hubris.
Yeah.
And to blow them up himself.
To give a speech to the mama bug.
Before they explode them. And there's a huge swarm of these outside, which doesn't happen in the book.
No. They're sent out into the tunnels, into the tunnel system where initially Mickey falls into.
Yeah.
And then the Mickeys go through the tunnels, and that's how they meet or reconnect, I guess.
Now, there was one little confusion I had with in the book, from the middle and the end. They saved him in the book. Now, did they save him because they posit in the book that they saved him because so maybe that he can lead them to the humans?
That was my interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, based on their communication at the very end, was that true? Or, like, why did they save him? In the movie, it was more clear, like, they saved him because they're gentle giants. Like, they're not mean creatures. They're saving him because they care.
Yeah.
To an extent. But in the book, the dynamic of, like, we don't care if you kill one of us so we can kill one of you. It doesn't make sense then why they saved him.
Well, I think even that is left a little unclear, maybe intentionally, because they touch on the idea that Mickey comes up with the analogy of when he was a kid, he found a spider in the house, and he brought it out to the garden. He didn't want to kill it. He took it outside of the house, brought it to the garden. But the analogy that he draws is, what if they were just taking Mickey back so that they could figure out how they operate, where they are, and figure out like how you're going to colonize the situation, how you're going to react and strike back at these human beings. And in fact, in the book, they are in fact capable of destruction.
Yeah.
They are
They kill.
absolutely lethal.
They will kill.
And so he sort of draws the analogy of like, did they just bring me back so that they could get a sense of where I am, and they're trying to colonize and take over the dome where I exist? The way I think it shakes out by the end of the book is that they are kind of trying to strike a peace. They're trying to take some version of them back to the colony.
Yeah.
So that they can start to communicate and start to ease tensions. Or sort of, because they're clearly sentient, basically saying, Don't hurt us.
Yeah.
We'll hurt you. This is your first warning.
Yeah.
And so when they come back, the implication is like, all right, so we're sparing you. We're sending you back one more time. We ate the other guy.
Yeah.
We're sending you back. This is it. You got to tell them, don't go to the foothills. Don't go past that. But even that's part of the ruse that he established.
Yeah. But they also didn't they? I mean, I don't know if they truly attacked, but there was the guard that died.
Yeah.
Went missing when he first came back.
Well, and even the creepers that they note in the book are modified so that they can like eat.
Yeah.
Or attack and devour.
Yeah. So they let Mickey go, and as he was coming back in, he waved to the security guard, who ends up dying.
Yeah.
So like they let him go, and then they killed the other guy right away.
Yeah. Well, it draws back, I think, to a line in the book where he says to them it's just a form of communication, and so I don't know that they ever really settle the dynamic there.
Yeah.
I think he maybe intentionally leaves it unsettled to be like, well, they're kind of just they're a hive mind. They think we're a hive mind.
Yeah.
So they're just taking you back this time, and they ate this guy because they didn't think it mattered.
Yeah. It's a little more ambiguous.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe this is part of a series.
There's a sequel, which I'd like to read now, called Antimatter Blues.
Yeah. I listened to the little snippet at the beginning, and I'm going to read it because there was one other question I had when he went out with Kat Chen and the others.
Yeah.
And he thinks he sees himself.
Yeah, so
and that's brought into the little epilogue as well. Like, he thinks he sees himself in the ship.
Yeah.
After they've already decided not to reinstate the Mickey program.
Which sounded like it might have been an aberration because the creepers had one of the oculars. And so it was transmitting data in a weird way.
But he, like, saw him.
Like, right through his eye. So, like, the ocular data was like...
Oh.
The way I read it was that he was getting feedback from the creepers who had, like, ocular data and were like, it was doing something fuzzy with this thing.
Okay.
That's at least how I interpreted it.
Yeah. It was those little things were a little bit more ambiguous in the book that I didn't really love. I think it was a lot clearer in the movie, the direction they took as being gentle giants versus capable of violent human beings.
Right.
At least they're, like, sentient, but it's just a baby.
You're right. Yeah.
Like, you feel bad for the creepers.
Oh, you empathize with them in a serious way. And again, it's absolutely his intent. He took the source material and he ran with it, and he is a progressive minded guy, and he likes to imbue his stories with those themes.
Very progressive and a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah.
So we went through main characters, obviously Mickey, Nasha, Marshall, huge difference. The additional characters, the creepers were their own characters altogether. Visually, did you think that it was a good adaptation?
Well, so this is going to be a fun one to discuss, because the conclusion is, I guess that's the emergent theme of the podcast, is that, like, is a good adaptation identical, or does it go in its own direction? And I think in this case, you make the clear point that he went in his own direction in a very coherent way. He was incredibly cognizant of what he was doing. He much like, well, it's not a one-to-one comparison, but I think a lot of how Jaws was a complete cannibalization of the book. Because Spielberg looked at the book and said, this doesn't work. He said, none of this works. Garbage. I wish the shark would win. I'm not rooting for the humans at all.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think necessarily it's that the book was... I liked the book quite a bit. I think it's that Bong Joon-ho, like a lot of filmmakers, realized that if you're going to adapt something, why do it word for word? Why do it page for page?
I don't think you needed to, and I think the things that he kept the same, the setting, the design, like, I pictured...
A lot of them are very similar, very hard sci-fi, the hard sci-fi of the sort of ship design and things like this and that. They omit the dome. In the book, they're able to establish a dome on Niflheim. I think
they just didn't get there in the movie.
Yeah, they didn't get there in the
movie. It was like an in-between section.
Right, because it's just as they have just arrived. I think the book... The fun of the book is that it's very hard science fiction, but with a sort of Chuck Palahniuk stream of consciousness, first-person narrative idea. Whereas the movie, I think it's much more flamboyant, much flashier, much, in a way, much gaudier, almost intentionally artificial-looking concept at times. A lot like another of my favorite directors, Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop, Total Recall, who likes very pronounced, exaggerated settings and production design because it's fun and because it fills up the screen.
I think Princess Bride did the same thing. Like, it made it look ridiculous. They had the tech there, they just didn't use it.
100%. Yeah.
And I mean, we had the tech here, and we used a lot of it, like with the weaponry and things like that. But it was very ostentatious and like big.
The staging, the lighting, it's very like I got a lot of Verhoeven when I was watching this, because it's like it's a little camp. Like, there is real camp that he's going with here, almost in a sort of Terry Gilliam Brazil sense of like, this is pronounced because I want to paint a visual picture.
But the camera work wasn't basic. A lot of times when it's like campy for some projects, it's like campy setting, basic camera.
Sure, yeah.
This was like his style of camera work.
Yeah.
It was very stylized and intentional, and I think it was like a interesting combination of like, this is cheesy background content, but he's not shooting it in a cheesy way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I liked a lot.
He's great.
He's great.
Yeah.
So, let's go cinematography, pretty good.
Yeah.
Characters, there were, side note of just like they added the wife, Marshall's wife, I don't even remember her name, in the movie, and they cut more.
Yifa is her name.
Yeah.
Ilfa.
But in the book, there was his trainer who really broaches philosophy with him.
Yeah, fascinating bit. Yeah.
She was in the movie, but very briefly.
She's a corporate functionary.
She's a corporate functionary, and it wasn't really like she was trying to help him understand the job and what it is to be human, versus that character in the book really presented him with, I think, the seeds of him questioning his humanity.
Yeah.
So he kind of had to do that on his own.
Well, it's the idea I love that they bring up in their conversation is the ship of Theseus. Is the classic example of you take a ship on its journey, and over the course of its existence, little bits of the ship are replaced and repaired, and over time, no original part of the ship exists. So everything that exists in the physical nature of the ship has been replaced. So it's not the same thing. But is it the same thing?
Yeah, that's the question.
If you call it by its name, if it's the same thing conceptually, if everyone agrees that conceptually it's the same thing, is it the same thing?
And all the parts are different.
Yeah, and I like that it is a device that works better from a literary standpoint, and it really made the book fascinating to me. That's the moment where I really locked in with the book philosophically, because it is a book about the idea of existence that I think at points even Mickey is doubting. Is this
what it is to be human?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have my memories. I am a perfect physical clone. I don't necessarily agree with the natalists about the extreme religious implications of it, but from an identity standpoint, am I Mickey 1? Am I Mickey Prime?
Or are you just a completely different Mickey altogether? And I think at the end of the book, he determined he's just his own person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when they cut off the program in both iterations. So they destroyed the, what's it called?
It's the printer, but it's like,
yeah,
there's a term for it.
It looks like an MRI machine. They print him out. And that was a funny as hell bit when he
in the movie,
when they're like
it's
literally
so good.
printing him out. And then he gets stuck like an old printer. You know how it like reverses a little bit and then starts going.
So it can add additional color or lines or whatever. And the bit where they forget to put the tray underneath. And like a piece of paper falling down. He just falls butt naked on the ground.
He just flops out, which is in the trailer, so if you want to see that bit, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, once they destroy that, it's just him, and there will never be other Mickeys.
Sure.
So he is Mickey Prime.
He's Mickey.
At that point.
He is Mickey Barnes.
He's just Mickey Barnes.
Yeah.
And I think that was just a tail ended on the movie when they had the title come back.
Yeah.
And when it flipped to 18, and then it just flipped back to 17, and then I think it took the number away. And
became Mickey Barnes.
And just was Mickey Barnes.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the ultimate lesson I think we can learn is you're just you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, at the end, they make a much more clear and more conclusive ending where Nasha, she's the leader, because again, in the movie, she has a much stronger personality, much more assertive, and joins the council, and it's implied that she could run the council eventually. And Marshall is gone and dead. His wife is, I think, cut her wrist. I think she commits suicide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
It is a very different sense of like, again, it is Bong Joon-ho's progressive politics of like, in an ideal world, if we're doing this, you do it equitably and you do it in the context of strong leadership that favors individual rights, as opposed to the sort of right-wing nihilism that Ruffalo's Marshall represents.
Nihilist.
Yeah. Because that's what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just... It's nihilism disguised as some kind of moral structure, but it's nothing. It's just nothing.
It's just nothing.
Yeah.
All right. So this was a fun one. Like I said, I had a blast watching that movie. I will rewatch it. It's one of those movies that I probably will. Not like anytime soon, but hey, it's on my server.
I'm putting it on. My wife Julie and I were immediately like, let's rewatch Parasite.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd like to rewatch The Host too, which I've seen and she hasn't.
I've seen both. My partner has not seen Parasite.
Parasite's great.
It's great.
If you haven't seen it, go see it.
It is thick, though.
Yeah.
If you were to describe it, dense.
Dense and dark. And
Dark.
grim.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you are in a bad mood or a bad day, probably don't watch Parasite, but it should. Mickey 17 cheered me up. I was like, this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
With the world, the way the world is going right now, and the one-to-ones he put in there.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is...
I had a blast.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
So I think you'll have a blast if you see the movie, and you'll have a blast if you read the book. This is much different than when we did The Martian. I didn't love the sci-fi elements of the book.
Mm-hmm.
This was a sci-fi book that I actually really enjoyed.
I wondered how you'd feel about it.
Yeah.
That was my question. Because like you had said previously that you're not the biggest sci-fi fan.
This one did it differently, though. When it went into the tech, it didn't go on into the actual science of the tech.
Right.
And I just didn't understand it. Like, without a basis of engineering for The Martian or not having any background in those topics very much, you can describe it all the live long day. Unless you tell me the specifics of how that works, I don't care.
It's just data.
It's just data.
Yeah.
And it was more real world data, things that are actually like present in our modern world now versus like Mickey 17. Those are fabricated sci-fi things. The plutonium gun or whatever like doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so you can tell me all about it because I can use my imagination to build it.
Well, and it's very different too because Mickey is not a scientist and states right up front, I am not. I have no applicable professional skills.
Yep.
I liked history and I'm stuck on a planet full of scientists who can all make a living, and I live on my stipend, and I'm just a guy. I'm just here.
I'm just here, and that's how I feel a lot of times with sci-fi. It's like I'm just here. So this sci-fi was a lot different for me than The Martian. So if you don't like sci-fi, like I'm not a huge fan of it, you'd probably like this book because it's more about human overall ranking. What do you give it?
This is one of those things where I philosophically, as an adaptation, I think it's a 10. It doesn't have to be identical for this to be brilliant and a pretty perfect distillation of the ideas in the book through his sort of visual lens and his more political viewpoint. I think it's going to be a cult classic. Unfortunately, it's not doing well at the box office. It could. I mean, who knows? It's.
I mean, other ones that just won Best Picture didn't do well in the box office either. Like Parasite did not do well in theaters.
Sure. Yeah.
When it first came out, and then it won Best Picture. I'm pretty sure that Anora didn't do well in its theatrical release.
But it's got to bounce now.
But yeah.
I think it'll, unfortunately, I think because it's so early in the year, it's going to get ignored, I think, in award season. Yeah. I feel like it's going to get ignored, which is unfortunate. But also, fuck the awards, who cares?
I think it'll be tapped by some of the, like, lesser awards. I think it's going to miss out on Oscars. I think it's going to be tapped by SAG.
And I think it's Spirit, right? Because I think it's an independent movie. I think Plan B, Brad Pitt's company, produced it.
Yep.
So I think it's an independent movie. Technically a very expensive independent movie, but an independent movie.
Yeah. So I don't care about the Oscars anymore.
Yeah, fuck them. But, you know.
Fuck them. But yeah. So ranking for me overall, I would say like a 9, just because some of the more philosophical things that I thought really made the book unique in terms of questioning humanity did not translate fully.
Sure.
Into the movie because they kind of were replaced with more of the political stuff.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like I said, I had a blast. So I would say it would be about a 9 for me on the adaptation front. Movie alone, I give it a 10. But
it's such a blast.
We're not. Oh, this is an adaptation podcast.
It's an adaptation podcast.
We can't just talk about the movie.
Well, look, I'm an agent of chaos, and I'm gonna disrupt. Look, all you disruptophobes out there. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and disrupt. No, I know, because I think this is also, I was thinking about this all day, where it's like, we're broaching this interesting concept of, that I think it's very personal in how you, like, assess the thing. And I think the number of times we've flipped in terms of our appreciation of, like, 1-to-1, or, like, did it get the details and does it matter? If there's anything I'm gleaning from this, it's how fun it is to watch our respective reactions and be like, well, I don't know, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was okay, I guess. Or when we're solidly on the same side of, like, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just bad.
Yeah.
Altogether bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you got the ranking, do you think that this will be remade? And if so, what format and what time frame potentially?
I think it depends, because I think there's obviously a sequel book, so I think that there's source material there to continue the story. I think it would be interesting if a different director picked it up and put their own spin on it. Mm-hmm. It'd be hard to do, because as a direct sequel, you'd have to match the tone, but I could see someone saying, what if the sequel's a Fincher book? What if it's a Fincher adaptation? What if it's somebody with a more serious or darker approach to the material? The book itself, will it be adapted again? I don't know. I think it depends on the kind of footprint this one has, because I could also see this being a one and done. for the source material.
Unfortunately, since it's not doing too well in theaters, it's not going to give, enough recognition for the source material along with this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it will be. I would like to see it as a show.
The same thought, yeah.
Yeah, and with going through more of the iterations, like
Sure.
learning more about Mickey and like building up the liking him more, and then he dies and you're like, oh crap, and then he starts over. I would love to have seen this as a show. I don't think it's going to be adapted into a show
anytime soon.
Anytime
I don't
soon.
think so.
Maybe if it's like 50 years from now, they keep drudging up the same stuff.
Yeah.
Like An Affair to Remember got another one.
Sure, yeah.
So it's not like it's going to be a long time.
But I mean, I will say, I am convinced this is going to become a cult classic. Mm-hmm. I think that it has all the makings of a movie that it is such a confidently made statement from a really talented filmmaker. It is really brash and interesting, and he makes really, what's the word I'm looking for? I was watching a video essay about filmmaking, and part of what's making films weaker is that there's less intent.
Decisiveness.
You have an industry where, especially if they're big studio films, where you're just trying to get 4 quadrants. Yeah. And so who cares? Slap a green screen out there and put it on the back, and who cares?
That's why I actually love animation more now than I have ever done.
Sure.
Because it takes so much more money and effort to make an animation, so they're going to put more time into the story.
Yeah.
To make it better. They're not going to just burn and churn same stories over and over again.
Yeah.
If I saw another Groundhog Day type movie. I'm sick of seeing Groundhog Day type movies. It's another horror movie.
Yeah.
Like
Until Dawn.
Yeah. And I'm like,
best in the video game, yeah.
It's interesting as a horror movie, but they did that with birthday.
Happy Death Day.
Happy Death Day. They did that, and like they've done the repeat of Edge of Tomorrow has the sci-fi notion of it, like repeating. So they're just burn and churning the same concepts over and over again.
Yeah, sure.
So I think Mickey 17 was the most unique movie I've seen in a year.
Yeah, it's something special.
Yeah, it's something special, it's something unique, and I think you should all go see it. So I see it while this adaptation is out, because we don't think it's going to happen anytime soon again.
Yeah.
And I agree, I think it's going to be a cult classic, especially 10 years from now when we look back and see all the political references.
Oh, yeah.
And been like, ooh.
Oh, it's going to get dug out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll meme it. So.
Oh, yeah.
I might meme it. All right, so that's it. And we're going to try and continue to release episodes for you every 2 weeks. If you don't already, follow along, like, subscribe, whatever you do for podcasts. And we have an editor
exciting.
Board, so hopefully that'll make it even more consistent. His name's Ryan, and we're happy to have him. So thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, so we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.